Hello, Crawley fans, and welcome back to On the Ground, the podcast series where we chat a little bit to our chairman, Preston Johnson, about all things Crawley Town. Firstly, Preston, how are we doing?
Doing all right.
Doing
Thank
all
you.
right?
It's good to be back. It's been a little while.
Yeah, I feel like we say this every time, don't we, that we've left it a bit too long. So we will try and make a conscious effort to do these a bit more regularly. I suppose the best place to start is the thing that we've been talking about for so long. We spoke a little bit about the preview of it in the last episode, is the January transfer window. How do you think it went?
How did we think it went? Overall, it was positive. It's interesting. I think more so than other windows, we felt like we were missing out on players that we had targeted that we really wanted. There were 7 in particular, like that we thought were real difference makers for our squad that didn't end up choosing us for one reason or another. So I think it was the most frustrating window for that reason, because like usually you can figure it out, whether it's money, cost, contract length, whatever it may be, a transfer fee from another club. So with that in mind, I don't know if it's partly because we're fighting relegation. I think we're like some of the atmosphere there. Do they want to have a relegation potentially on their CV as a player or a footballer? Maybe not. A few of the agents mentioned to us, the fan unrest during that time, which was somewhat annoying, which is why we tried to hurry and do the fans forum to try to clear things up. But it was a situation that I think for some of the players, they didn't, or the agents specifically didn't want their players in. So I think that was the part that was disappointing. But every move we made, we're pretty happy with at the end of the day, though, and we did improve and got better, which is the whole point at the end of the day. Personally, I think there was of those 7, we wouldn't have been able to afford all of them. So when I say 7, it's like between 2 different position groups, it probably would have only been 1, tops 2 of that 7. So to not get one of the 7, though, is I think where I feel like we were just like one difference maker short. But that's how the game goes. And one of them came down. We were waiting the final deadline day. And I don't know if you remember, I went upstairs. It was like 9:30 p.m. Yeah. We finally found out he chose a different club over us. And it was like, okay, so, there was an hour and a half left at that point. But we were waiting most of the day to just try to figure out if it was going to be us or not. And, that was only one of the 7. So it's just one of those things that I felt like we were one maybe short of feeling like we accomplished the most we could, but we did the best we could. At the end of the day, you can't control all the other variables. But yeah, I think that's about where I'm at in my head. What do you think?
Yeah, I think a good place to obviously start to continue that is obviously talking about the players who left, because it was always on the radar that the likes of sort of Jay, by this point, obviously a lot of fans had sort of clocked on, may not be the right phrase, but Ronan was always sort of tipped to leave. Jay was tipped to leave. So was that is it a relief for you when you see that people have already sort of figured it out before it goes out, because it somewhat eases the sort of element of surprise when it pops up on Twitter? I don't think the timing of the Ronan one was particularly great, because it was literally announced as people were coming into the fans forum, but nothing could be done about that, unfortunately. But in terms of, obviously, we'll have a word on Ronan and Jay, because they were the most sort of prominent ones that left. Obviously done great things for us over the last couple of years. But yeah, to go back to the point, was it sort of, does it relieve a bit of pressure knowing that people already sort of know?
I hadn't thought of it that way before. So you're kind of, by the way, this is probably the least formal podcast we've done yet.
Oh, yeah.
We're let's just turn the camera on and see what happens. 100%. Some of the other ones we had fan questions or things more planned. But I like that question. I don't know if it's a relief, because in each case, it wasn't like it was a certainty anyway. So I don't know if I ever really, like the Ronan one for sure. I think people were, from what I heard prior, like, oh, he's sitting out, he must be on a move. Like, he actually hurt his groin and he missed a few weeks. Yeah. He came back and played actually off the bench.
Game,
It was at the Stockport game. And then that's when Wigan was suddenly like, oh, so he must actually be fit now if he's back, and now we'll have a discussion. But it wasn't, Ronan's someone we actually really were considering, for our future plans too, and potentially getting a new contract sorted with him within, our budget and within reason. But I don't know if I really felt relief from fans already knowing, because it would be weird if they assumed one thing and then it didn't happen too on the other side. I think the biggest thing from kind of just an overall, from the ownership group or from fans, from players, club perspective, we ended up having a few offers that we didn't agree to on 2 players in particular that would have been 2 of the 3 biggest sales in club history. And so in some ways, two of the bigger moves we made was just like keeping players to try to give us the best chance to stay up, because we need everybody we can. And so, earlier when I was kind of like, I wish we had gotten one more, it's true. And there was like 7 in particular that we were excited about that got pretty close. We also were able to keep 2 of our best players and most valuable players for the run to end the season here and, into the future. So, I think that's more or less kind of the summary for me in my head. But from the fan perspective, I think most of them, like if that's the case where they were assuming Jay and Ronan were probably on the way out, and then we brought in, 5 or 6 more that have, been, it's the Matthew Cox one's unfortunate when you have an injury, like there's nothing you can do sometimes. It's just the luck of it all. But overall, we've been excited about who's come in, and Liam just had his first start the other night and looks pretty good in that role and fit to go 90 right out of the gate, which I think was another question some of the fans had since he had been out of the MLS for about 2.5 months. But anyway, I don't know if there's anything else that came to your mind January-wise.
No, I was going to bring that up next, actually, how well the new lads have sort of settled in. Obviously, Kamari started pretty much every game he's been involved in, obviously off the bench a couple of times as well. So in terms of getting everybody in through the door, obviously Ben had the whole of January because he was brought in practically on the first.
Right away.
He played in that Barnsley game, didn't he, off the bench? He settled in really well into that back line. So it's actually, when you look at it, we've got the benefit of having seen the last few games, and obviously we've picked up a few positive results since the last time we recorded. So when you actually have, the benefit of hindsight, you can say that the January transfer window has been, a big success on the basis that we have picked up results, and a lot of the players that
they're contributing.
Yeah, exactly. They contributed massively to those results. And, Rob seems happy. Obviously, as you said, a bit unfortunate with the Cox situation, but, it's just football. Stuff like that's always going to happen. But I think from a fan point of view as well, it seems to have got a lot calmer now. We've picked up a few results, because I suppose when you're in that run of form where we're not picking up wins, it's hard, because the only thing you see is doom and gloom. Like the Finland even extends to social media is pretty low. But how have you noticed the sort of mood lifting? Now we've got a couple of decent results. Obviously, we've just had that run of 3 home games where we picked up 5 points. So how have you seen the mood changing around the whole camp and online as well?
I feel like I could go into some huge philosophical discussion right now, because I've been really thinking about this a lot myself the last few weeks. Or I was actually since the fans forum. So I wanted to do the fans forum because I wanted to try to calm some of the frustration a little bit as best I could. And the fans, truthfully, they want to be heard, and we're happy to listen and take on information and feedback and advice. And I feel like it's been better since then. So I'm glad we did it for that reason. But more than anything else, I think I might have I honestly haven't watched it back, but I might have referenced this, but I think I alluded to the idea of how hard it is to deal with uncertainty, especially in sport as a fan, or employees or owners of a club, and the stakes are so high. And there's this point of not knowing and knowing, and there's this space in between those two things that's extremely painful.
Yeah.
Sorry, my head went to a different. I went to a different place for a second, but that learning space, or that unknowing. At League One, we're playing some of these clubs that are just massive, and we haven't visited some of these stadiums before, and we're getting away crowds, that are really strong. And on a Tuesday night, we were almost at 4,000 the other night, which is amazing. I know half term probably helped a little bit with families able to go, but I'm trying to embrace that space of unknowing. And while uncertainty is painful and it's frustrating, and I think the fans obviously are showing their frustration, even some of my reactions to fans are showing my frustration. At the end of the day, we can only control what we can control, and we're doing our best to give ourselves the best chance to stay up. And so I think just being able to talk it out and have a fans forum like that, and then having a couple results, those types of things just psychologically are so helpful. So I think the mood has been way better. Personally, I also not constantly on Twitter or Instagram looking at every little detail, but sometimes people point things out or bring it up. But I think it has been improved. players, dressing room, coaching staff, similar. I think everyone just kind of feels every piece of it. I've always said, I think the fans, sometimes we don't realize the impact they do have on players because they're all reading social media all the time, and even the coaches are. So I think overall it was beneficial, and having an okay window with some results, and like you said, some of those players making immediate contributions is great. I think I was trying to remember, we were talking earlier a little bit about the table and like what we were like our expectations were on how many points we think we might. I don't know if you know, like in your head, like is there a general discussion out there on like what fans think is like the number we need to get to be safe this year?
I think if you were to ask anyone, people tend to pinpoint 50 for league.
50 were safe almost always. It's
yeah,
one of those.
Exactly.
Yeah,
so like people say if you can get to 50, you've got a very, very, you'd have to be very unlucky basically to get relegated on 50 points. So that's the generic one. I think that is also what the coaching staff have also pinpointed. Whether they've then shared that with the players or not, I'm not sure. But, the discussions we've had with them, it's just like, look, let's just get to 50.
Get to 50.
But then obviously I think I always struggle to look at it like that because it hasn't really married up this way yet, so it probably won't make sense. But I just think every time we seem to win, everybody around us wins as well. So like, it's not always going to be like we could get to 50, but like Cambridge or Shrewsbury could get to 51. Like, I think the actual number that you will need to stay up will just change every week depending on what the other people's results are. Because you've only got, in theory, be better than you've actually got to be better than 4 other teams, haven't you? So it's going to change every week. So I always struggle to think of it that way because I have to look at it game by game and go, right, well, they've won, so it means we need to win next week, but then they need to lose. But do you think 50 is the right number, or would you go lower? Because obviously you guys look at a lot of stats, so I'm sure there's certain... is there templates that you use or anything that like spits out? I know Mark Dunford from the Observer, they've got like a supercomputer,
like a simulation,
that predicts what the season will end as, but I don't think that can surely take into account of like injuries and stuff like that. So we could go out there next week and lose half our squad. So then our prediction's surely going to get lower. But is there anything that you guys have pinpointed?
Yeah. So your assessment on it changing constantly. It's fluid. Like every game, like Burton was down a man the other night and still won. Most of the game they were playing with 10. Like Shrewsbury was down a man and a goal 2 Saturdays ago, down 1-0 and scored twice, down a man and won. Like overall, like it's been interesting to look. And then meanwhile, we're up 3-1 against Bolton and can't get a result, or Wrexham in the final action on a foul call that probably should have been made there. Yeah. Exeter up 4-1 in the second half and end up drawing. Like we've seen, I think that's what also makes it more frustrating when you see some of these crazy like extremes on like unlucky versus lucky for Shrewsbury potentially or Burton to get results like that. So it makes it more painful. But when you look at the stats, it's constantly changing. So to give you an idea, I think so. The betting markets right now have us minus 150, which in decimal would be like 4 to 6 for you guys, like 60% to get relegated. I think it's a little lower than that, but it's close to a coin flip more or less, which is again that uncertainty and that space of knowing. It's like it sucks. That's just what it is, though. For us, we kind of priced the 50. We'd be safe a lot of the time, so that's a great number. If we can get to that, we'd be really happy with that. 47 is kind of the 50-50 point in our heads right now. It was probably closer to 46 before a couple of the last results with some of the other clubs. If like it's kind of upped it a little, which again is constantly changing. But if we get to 48, I think we're safe more frequently than not. 47's like, hope our goal difference improves. Like it's going to be really close. 46 or worse, I feel like then we're going to be on that other side of the coin of the 50-50 number. So that's about to give people kind of a distribution of context. That's kind of where I see things, but 50 would be amazing. We would take that every time. So it's just a matter of getting just like 7 more wins or something would probably get us there. So but
that's the sort of beauty of football is how unpredictable it is, because if you look at it from a stats point of view, you probably would have looked at the stats from the Wigan game, and if you had hit the score, you probably would have seen 27 shots, 2 goals disallowed offside, and go, oh, Wigan probably win that 2 or 3-0, and then you see 1-0 and you're like, oh, okay. But then you look at, as you say, the Bolton match, and we're 3-1 up at 60 or whatever it was, and then we go on to obviously lose that 4-3, and you go, oh, like the stats can only tell sort of half the picture, and then you actually get the whole football the beauty of football side of it chucked in, and it is so unpredictable, isn't it?
That was the first game in a while where I've come out of it saying like, oh, we were really fortunate based on the stats. Like I think it ended up being 27 or 28 shots to 7 for us.
I think so, yeah.
I think each club only had 4 or 5 on goal, but I'll go a little bit more into numbers if people want to forward through this. Like, go for it. I don't care. But this is interesting. So when you actually are looking at each game this season, and we always talk about XG, it's the expected goals. It's basically how much opportunity did you create or concede. And after each match, you'll see, okay, this club created this much XG and they conceded this much, which equates to a win probability percentage for that game. How often do you get 3 points? How often do you draw? And how often do you lose? So in a game like, what's one great example? Wrexham, when we went away to Wrexham, we like dominated that game.
Yeah.
Them getting 3 points was like an 11% event. We were supposed to win that game more frequently than not. The numbers then, for example, Tuesday night, like Wigan was supposed to win that game pretty frequently. So for us to get a point, it was a 23% draw. Like most of the time they were supposed to win that one. I think we had like a 10% win expectancy and they had like 67% to win. So like that was one of the first times I felt like, all right, we got a little lucky there. But if you actually take before that match going into, so basically you can use those win probabilities and it gives you an expected points for every game you play.
Yeah.
And we went through all of our games, and going into Wigan the other night, our actual points on the table relative to expected points was just over 6 points lower than our expected points. Like we've been pretty unlucky. Yeah. Which is not the thing fans or anyone actually wants to hear. Yeah. It's excuses. But like 46 matches is actually a really small sample in a game where 1 goal or 2 goals like changes. It could be a 6-point swing. Yeah. So it's just a very, like, for example, last year, Forest Green, I think, finished bottom of the table. I think they were dead last. Yeah. They were like not even close to the worst team in League Two. Like not even, it was like they were the 17th best team, but they were pretty unlucky and they went down, and now I think they're near the top, if not the top of National League. So that's like give you context for last year. And so we're like now we're more like 5 points under where we should be because we just got lucky probably by about a point or not quite, but it's probably like 25.25 or 3 is probably the true number without having run it yet. So I just wanted to give people, I guess, a little more on like context, but like the actual amount of chances we create and concede do equal like over time win probabilities that, if we even just continue, like here's another example. Since we had the weird scheduling holiday spot, it was Birmingham right before. Yeah, we had Birmingham Christmas Eve, Christmas, and Boxing Day was Leyton Orient.
We went away to Exeter, and then we were playing again.
I think it was Leyton Orient first on the 26th, and then Exeter, if I recall.
Exeter, then at home to Birmingham on the 20. No, Birmingham was the 23rd.
Leyton the 26th.
Monday. Then we had Boxing Day. Then we were away to Exeter.
So if you
then
start,
we were away to Barnsley on
so if you start from Exeter to date, our XG differential in all of League One is top half of the table. It's either 10th or 11th. I'm not 100% sure since Tuesday. That's really positive. That means, and eventually you're going to start getting results when you're like an average League One team. Now that's kind of just like cherry picking a date to some degree, but that Birmingham Leyton around the holiday scheduling spot was like one of the worst any club in League One's going to have to face this season. And then, obviously we've tried to make some additions through the window. We have some players that are getting fit and coming back. We still have, like Toby and Josh Flynn as defenders that are hopefully back in the next couple of weeks as well. So that should just keep adding to it. So we're actually like, I think our prospects of staying in this and having a real shot to get there are again, the betting markets think we're an underdog, but I think it's closer to 50-50. And if we have any sort of regression to the mean on expected points versus our XG and what we've been creating, because I think at one point before we just got 5 points, we were like the 10th best XG diff since Exeter, and we had like 1 point to show for it or something. And it's like, that's really demoralizing, especially for players and coaches.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And you can only say so much like, you guys really performed well, the results will come. Like, eventually, it's just like really hard mentally. So I'm excited that we've gotten the last 5 points because it's at least like proof and evidence in what we're trying to do and how the guys are actually playing, which has been slightly above average in League One for the last couple of months.
Yeah, and that leads me nicely actually to this question, which I hope is okay to ask, because I think when people listen to us and we're sort of saying that, yes, I think, did you say 67% of the time Wigan probably do go on to win?
Correct. They're supposed to get 3 points.
That's not us saying that Wigan should have won that game. They ultimately deserved it. Our players didn't do well. Like, that's obviously what we're saying is it's so sort of strange how football works that on the stats it says that they should win 67% of the time. But for you guys, how is it difficult to then take that to Rob without sounding like you're almost hammering the team, or is it a very... Do they sort of get that as well?
You want to go another layer?
Yeah.
Okay. Whether it was the right no call or not, but there's a good chance Junior was in the box and got his legs cut out from underneath him when he went down, and it could have been a penalty for us. That's not included in the stats, but that's worth 0.78 XG.
Yeah.
At that point, we're basically similar XG if we get a penalty, and we win 2-1.
Yeah.
Like, so one little non-call or something like that changes the whole dynamic and nuance of how you're trying to assess the game too. So, you'd be like, man, we gave up 28 shots. Like, that's pretty bad. It's probably the most we've given up since I took over the club, truthfully. I'd have to double check, but for sure this season. We could also say, look, if they make the call on Junior and we're up a goal, like, we might hold on and actually get 3. So, or if one of theirs wasn't offside that went in, they're probably saying this one wasn't actually offside. We should have won 2-1. Like, so it's very nuanced, which is, again, why this is like such a small sample even one season is. But no, we're, able and willing to have conversations with Rob that break down the numbers and the data, and there's always just more to the story too than even the numbers and the data, because there's officiating, like the Wrexham one. Like, that was a very equally played game overall. If anything, maybe people think we actually outplayed them some, and they end up getting 3, right? So, like, it happens. But there's more to that, where you see the replay and Jeremy gets tugged down in the box and we get like an EFL apology letter afterwards. And it's like, well, what can you do? It doesn't help us. But the truth is we deserve more than 0. So you can go to Rob and the guys and try to break that all down. But there's so much to the game. That's what makes it a beautiful game.
Yeah, too. That's what I've been trying to say basically, is that just because on the stats it says that we should have lost the game, there's so many other factors. Like at Bolton away, you've got 20,000 people. In the manager's, first home game, like the atmosphere was, certainly one of the best I think that we've experienced this season, which obviously gives the home players a massive boost. I'm not saying it does anything to sort of affect our players' performance, but it's naturally going to pick up the performance of the home players. So that obviously increases it, which I imagine probably isn't in the data or the spreadsheet really, but it's such a weird.
That's a whole other question too. Like, have I told you like about the Exeter goals that they scored? Have I given you that whole spiel?
I don't think so.
There's another one. It sounds like excuses. This is just facts. I'm just gonna tell you. However, we're up 4-1. The 3 goals that Exeter scored in that game were all 0.01 XG opportunities, which means on average they go in 1% of the time.
Yeah.
So the odds of all 3 of those 1%ers happening is literally 1 in a million.
Yeah.
Now, they had other shots that we blocked or saved or that didn't go in.
Yeah.
But just that event of them having a trio of goals all from outside the box or just inside that just were like perfect strikes or deflections. It was literally a 1 in a million shot. Like, otherwise we have 3 points at Exeter and like, who knows? So it's like, it's a crazy thing to try to digest. And like the concept of just variance and randomness is again, one of the things that's hard for people to like embrace. What was the actual question you asked? Hold on. What did you ask right at the end? For some reason, you were talking about for Bolton.
Yeah.
So for in that instance, like the numbers will pick up like what the odds were of a goal going in, but it's not picking up the referee decisions, but it's also not picking up like human emotion or like fan. But like, do the fans help them create more shots, or are we a little nervous and playing back too much and bringing on more opportunity for them? So like, it actually then would show, because it would say, because like, so this is why I brought it up. Sorry, I remembered in my head. Exeter, while they made 3 that were like 1%ers, and that's crazy, I think they had 15 shots in that second half.
Right, okay.
So being away and being up and having not played with that type of lead yet with some of these guys, we're a younger squad. Like, did we sit back a little too much and kind of lose our aggression that we had in the first half, where we completely outplayed them as one of the best halves we've ever played? I think that and one of the Stevenage halves from like last week.
Yeah.
Probably. So like some of that emotion actually is in the numbers by nature of the way you play ends up showing. Does that make sense?
Yes.
I've lost where I was trying to go with it, but my fault. But
No, I think so. And I think we can talk about this with you slightly more with Rob, because we will get in trouble with Rob if we talk about it post-match, but if we take into account some of the decisions that we've had go against us at these crucial moments, because even the 8-1, it jogged my memory, the one where the cross comes in and Joe can't move. He tries to go and punch.
That was one of the Exeter ones. That's why it was a .01, because it was literally a goal from a corner.
It's a goal from a corner, and Joe is fouled in the build-up. He literally can't come for the ball. And then you look at the Wrexham one, you look at the Bolton one, whether that would have happened or not with when the guys on the floor, and you got the fourth official saying, oh, you're not allowed to continue playing if you've got a guy on the floor. Why has he been allowed to continue playing? And just hope that it won't matter at the end of the season. We can look at it and go, oh, that was unfortunate, but we're all right. But is that I imagine it is for Rob, because it's jobs on the line for everybody. But I can't think of another team. I know I'm obviously biased, but I can't think of another team that's been this unlucky with crucial decisions that have cost either 1 or 3 points. It's not like we're talking about, we lost 3-0, but the second goal shouldn't have counted. Like we're talking actual points on the line.
Yeah, which is worth millions of pounds to this club, which is worth a lot for this club. It's really frustrating and annoying for me and the others for sure. I haven't watched every team play every game. I'm sure everyone has arguments we've been the most unlucky squad, but I've also until this season never gotten EFL apology letters for misses. That's new. So that's probably some sort of signal that it's been pretty bad and really bad spots for us. I mean, I think when I looked at the screen, there was 4 seconds left before I think it was 5 added in the Wrexham one. It was literally the last action of the game. Yeah. And they said it should have been a free kick for us, for the defense. And it's that cost us 1 point. Now, hopefully that 1 point doesn't matter. So that's why you got to keep trying. It's a whole mental game. But does the second one against Bolton, if it doesn't get allowed, changes the whole complexion of the game, where suddenly we end up not only maybe getting 1, but getting 3 because we're up 2 and they're not. As soon as they cut it to 1, they're going another mode, a higher level. It's all what ifs though. So one of the most basic things when I was a kid playing sport, mostly basketball when I grew up. And I don't know, my dad probably stole it from someone, but he just used to always say, win stands for what's important now, and you just can't let the past affect your future decision-making and attitude and mentality, which is a really hard thing to do. But that's kind of, I think, where Rob and the guys are at, where they just focus on the next one, focus on the next training session, focus on the next set piece, whatever little, it's just part of how they're wired, and it's necessary. You can't really worry about the things you can't control at the end of the day. Yeah,
interesting little sort of side question on the back of that. Are we a good case of should the sort of
I'm just glad they had it at Wembley last year.
Yeah, but it's exactly right. And is this a good case of if the sort of software and obviously if the stadiums will ever allow, because to set up a million cameras around the Broadfield Stadium for VAR and goal. I remember obviously when we're in the playoffs, they have goal line technology. I'm not sure a lot of people know that. So they come and have goal line technology. They set up all their sort of, lasers and cameras, and it's a big operation. So it would obviously be a big operation to bring VAR to all 92 clubs, across England. But should we ever get there, do you think this is a good case study? But purely on the basis, as you say, these points literally cost us millions of pounds. Yes, it would cost millions of pounds to set up, and also because we're not just going to sit here and slam referees. I think Premier Leagues they've got the safety net behind them of knowing that if they've made the mistake, they have a group of answer. 6 or 7 guys, back at Stockley Park or wherever it is that they hold their VAR stuff to correct them. Whereas these guys, they're under so much pressure, they can't then go and confer. They have to make the decision right then, right now, which is obviously going to mean they're going to make more mistakes. And they probably will look back at it after and go, yeah, that wasn't great, I should have given that. But at the time, unless you're literally looking at the incident, you're not going to see it. So do you think you would be an advocate for it? I mean, Wembley's great for us as well, because obviously he gives it, but surely he only gives that one on the basis that...
You watch the NFL, have you been okay with replay being added more frequently for challenges, coaches' challenges?
I do, and especially because I'm an Eagles fan, and in the Super Bowl, I'd rather the decision be right than, yes, it adds, a little bit of
extra time.
If you're a fan, you want it to be right. If you're being denied by, I want my team to win because they were the better team, not because somebody didn't go and review
or if something. You got a call your way, but it got changed.
Yeah, exactly. You can't complain. If it's right, then it's right. And if it goes by the law of the game, but I've never been a big advocate for VAR in football on the basis, I don't like how long it takes. I think it does suck that out of it. But then, having been as a Crawley fan watching these decisions, it's so frustrating. You can't help but think, well, we would be so much better off it. Would I have taken, a 5-minute review of the Jeremy Kelly foul in the Wrexham game if it meant that we held on for a point? Yes, I would.
For sure. Yeah.
For sure. Would I have taken, potentially 3 points or a point away at Bolton? Yes, I would. Would I have taken the 3 points at Exeter? Yes, I would. You can have half an hour time wasting if you want. It's going to matter, but to throw that to you,
the main complaint in America for NFL, and they've started doing it in the NBA the last few years, is that it just takes too long. It slows down the game. The product's not as good. Fun, you lose viewers. I'm like you, like a little OCD. Like I just want the right call made.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. It's just like it should be what it is. Like especially in basketball, it's as easy as who did the ball go off of with a minute left in a tie game, and you want to make sure when there's a minute left in basketball, that's like 2 or 3 possessions left.
Yeah.
And if you're giving it to the wrong team on 2 possessions left, like it's like such a big advantage.
Yeah,
like just get it right, even if it takes 5 minutes. So then going to the question about football here, would 100% be okay with it, but I understand the cost.
Yeah,
it's like nuts, especially the EFL doesn't have the funding that the Premier League or the income
it would be
and revenue.
I don't think it will ever happen purely for that reason, but I know there's been sort of talk of it and people have suggested whether they'd want it or not. But
I think the most annoying part for us is I just knocked the mic, Matt, my bad. The most interesting part for us is because as a fan you want what's right for your club. But it's not even just like, the difference between League One and League Two next year is well over £1 million projected, most likely. But it's not like you're getting back to League One the next year necessarily. Like it could be 2 or 3 or 4 years, or maybe you end up being a really good. It could be like multiple years League One. You could end up. We could be a mid-table League One team next season, or into we just similar to we got here in year one. It was really hard. We made some mistakes. We weren't good enough. We were battling relegation. We survived. We found a way to get promoted in year two. If we could survive this year, we feel like we could be sustainable and compete in League One like ongoing for multiple years, which is millions and millions and millions and millions for the club and the community. So that's, I think, the most frustrating is you can put a price on it or a number on it for 1 year it could cost us. But you go to the EFL and say, like, look, this decision, that 1 point or these 2 points here, I mean, that could cost us tens of millions if you're looking at it like that one day. Hopefully it doesn't. But, that's the reality of it. So it is really frustrating. I'd be curious what most English fans think. Is my assumption is that most are kind of traditionalists and don't want to deal with VAR, especially in every league, every game. Which makes some sense. I think it's, like you said, it's probably never going to happen anyway because of the cost. Have they tested like in between options? Like VAR is so specific and you have so many angles and so many cameras. Is there a more cost effective way to do?
I don't know if it's more cost effective. I know they've been talking about trialing, and they have trialed at World Cups and Women's World Cups, like the automated offside, which I think is effectively like goal line technology. I don't know if that is more cost effective than the actual full VAR setup or not, or if it's actually a more complex version. But obviously that only brings you one side of it because VAR tackles fouls and everything. Yeah.
But even that alone might be helpful. Just like to have some sort of stepping stone to maybe eventually get there.
Yeah, it's hard. It's a hard topic. In terms of the rest of the season, is this sort of while we're in a battle for survival, which is what we were obviously in the first season that you guys were here, how does it work for you? Because a lot of clubs, I suppose, across League One, across the Championship, across League Two, who are sitting probably pretty comfortable in mid-table, going probably not going to get promoted this year, definitely won't go down this year. Let's just make a jump on next year now. Let's start, having
play younger guys.
We can recruit, seeing who we can sort of get in and chat to early. Is it really hard at the moment, purely on the basis that obviously we're very confident that we can stay in League One, but so are all the other teams around us. So is it hard at the moment trying to prepare for next year on the basis that there is a potential that we could be in a different league?
Is it hard to prepare?
Or are you literally having to prepare for like 2 different scenarios and then you'll just have to sort of throw one away?
I think it's more you prepare either way and then you can start veering one way or the other if things get obvious one way or the other. But you kind of have to be prepared for both. Like even I won't use players specifically for examples, but there are a few players on the squad that I think can just terminate the contract if we go down. So like that's preparing, and it's like, who are we going to have on our squad going into next season? It could be different depending on the league, just on the players we already have under contract based on relegation or not. And then that's like, okay, so then that's X amount weekly that then is now freed up that we need to spend and find replacements for. Or if we're staying up, that's already accounted for in our wages or salaries. And then there's also like some of them will have like year 2 where it goes up a little bit because or they've hit a certain amount of starts. Those types of things trigger off. So it's kind of a fluid game that's constantly changing. The overall, I will say, just recruiting strategy the last 2 years, we feel like we kind of proved ourselves to some degree last year, and the players earned it, and Scott and company developed them. We getting some of the offers that we did in January, even though our results were battling relegation, but to have a couple of the offers we got and the interest we got for some of our guys, we feel like we've actually done a pretty good job recruiting overall. Haven't been perfect, of course, but we found guys for value for quite a bit less than they're actually worth, and we've developed them and giving them a platform and an opportunity. And so overall, I think that's like, no matter what level we are, that's our strategy, is just to try to find players of equal or better value for less than others think they cost at the end of the day. And that's kind of like the budget or bare bones version of how Crawley Town Football Club's recruiting the last few years. And we just got to continue to hope we can improve on it and keep incorporating the data and the numbers and everything else. So to answer your question in a roundabout way, like, we kind of just have to prepare for both simultaneously and then make the final decisions once we know. But the strategy overall is very much the same. It's like, where are some players that are kind of being overlooked that we could bring in? Like Ben's a great example. His data at Gateshead obviously had the connection to Rob too, which helped. But his data at Gateshead in our model was really, really good, and he's only 20, and so that was one that made sense. Bring him in for Derby. Like, he kind of, if people may or may not agree, this is just straight up opinion, he kind of reminds me a little bit of a mini Will Wright, like somewhat. I think he probably doesn't strike the ball as far as like a free kick like Will could, because Will was like phenomenal at that. But he's also only 20 years old and has like a ton to grow into for that position as a center back. So most League One clubs probably wouldn't be. Now, granted, we've had injuries and we weren't necessarily sure Ben would be starting every game every weekend. So he's jumped in and done a pretty good job. But most League One clubs probably aren't looking to the National League to like try to improve their current
Charlie's
squad.
A great example of that as well.
Charlie's another one. Yeah, thank you. So we're just going to continue to try to find those opportunities, and we're going to keep looking. We just got Liam from Canada. Like we'll look at any country possible to try to find value and add players that not only improve our chances to win games, but improve the value of the club as a developmental platform for the football side.
Yeah, and the preparation that not only covers on-field, it covers off-field as well, because it's, for the off-field stuff, we're in the similar boat of, great, we can come out and say, season ticket's going to be this much and match day prices will be this much, but if we're in a different league, it will naturally probably change because the product changes. You're obviously paying for a product with the season ticket, and the product of League One football with the teams of the likes of Birmingham, Wrexham, obviously they may end up getting promoted, so might not be in League One anyway, but there's still obviously some big teams, which makes the product better value. Because I saw Peterborough today, they announced that their season ticket prices would freeze and their match day prices and hospitality prices would go up.
Regardless of status?
Yeah. Well, so they announced that today. And then like the first few comments, like, really happy that you've frozen my season ticket. But if I'm paying what I'm paying for a League One season ticket, where we've been in and out of, Peterborough were one of the teams probably tipped to be up there. So they were like, well, you've sold me a season ticket at a price where we were sort of expected to do well. We haven't done well. And then I'm going to be paying the same price to watch League Two football. Not sure I'm happy with that. So it's, I think there's a fine balance of, pleasing people and getting it done early, but also not, cheesing people off by charging them too much. So
that's a fair point. I don't know what the answer is on that one for us. You might have an opinion. I mean, we only increased season tickets by 10%, I think, on the jump, and we were already like the cheapest ticket in League Two at the time. So I don't think the fans will be too upset on that one, but I understand
Yeah.
Peterborough, for example, if they're supposed to be one of the best teams in League One, they had higher expectations, and they're going to charge the same, which is probably a lot more than us for a League Two campaign. Like that could be frustrating for the fans for sure. But yeah, it also I think your point is it's more work for everyone in the office because you kind of have to have different things and you're juggling everything.
Because we got obviously as you say, a good increase. I think we ticked over 2,000 season ticket holders, which is the most we figured that out. We chatted with a few of the history guys, Ian, who runs the CTFC history page, and he said that he is very, very confident. We haven't actually got the number sort of listed anywhere, but it's the highest amount of season tickets the club has ever had, and I think we capitalised really well on the sort of euphoria from Wembley and everything. For me, it will be interesting to see how long that euphoria has lasted, and whether I'm sure people won't mind me saying, we obviously did well with our season ticket sales because of Wembley, because of that final run.
Mm-hmm.
Have we managed to sort of keep those people interested? Have we managed to make them sort of fall in love with the football club? Because there was a big number. We've got the data. There was a lot of new season ticket holders who had never been season ticket holders before. Had they been fans of Crawley before in the past? We're not, totally sure. Some of them were in the system, some of them weren't. But there was a bunch of fresh fans that had only sort of attended a few
Do you know what the
games.
final number was total?
Not off the top of my head. It was over 2,000, but not by far. I think it was like under 2,100, I think, or maybe it was around that number.
In my head, I feel like I remember Ben or someone at one point saying that it was nearly 400 were brand new.
I think, it's around
which
that.
It's probably a little less than 20% overall, but to have almost a 20% increase in just new season ticket holders, I think that's about the number. It might be slightly less. It might be like 18 or 19%. I think it's the correct one, but that's phenomenal. The question is, if we stay up, is that good enough to be like, what can we do in year 2 in League One?
Yeah, and have we kept enough of those people interested, or are they going to want to go and watch people winning games?
What do you think as far as like actual like match day fan experience this year, like in general? Like
I think it's obviously gone up. We've made like small improvements with the T-screen stuff. Where obviously the family excellence report that we get is a good indicator. Obviously we passed again last year, which is always good. We've brought Reggie back, which was good.
Yes,
that's a big win. We've obviously got to thank the guys from the foundation for that. They've been helping us out there. So yeah, that's been really good. As I say, the T-screens, obviously the fan zone's doing really well. Like when you walk around there now, it's the biggest issue I think people will highlight to us is the queues. But for us, we'd like to get the queues down, but queues are a good thing because it means that people are coming. It means that people are interested. The stadium, the amount of conversations we've had in the office, if the stadium was developed now, we would all develop it probably the other way around. Obviously, there's been long conversations about Reds probably being in the wrong location. It's backwards. You want it the other way around, so it's easier to access from the road and everything. But that's just how everything changes, and we are trying to sort of see what funds are available. We've looked at improving the PA system, which I know is a pretty big one. It actually broke in the East Stand the other day. Got to thank Innovation Electrical, little plug in there. That actually was.
It's when the wire got mysteriously cut.
Mysteriously, yeah. So we don't know if someone sabotaged us there. But if you didn't hear the PA working in the East Stand, I can't remember which game it was for. It was one of the more recent ones.
I think it happened at Wrexham, so it would have been the game after.
Yeah, the game after that. It was Stevenage, was it? Yeah. So the Stevenage game actually wasn't working. But yeah, shout out to Peter Frake and Innovation Electrical who came in and got that fixed for us. But we are constantly looking at other ways we can improve the fan experience. And I think ultimately, we are, although fighting for survival, we are quite fun to watch. Like a lot of the games here, whether that be, for the people that are fully attached to Crawley that have been coming, as long as a lot of them have, it's frustrating. But if you're sort of coming as I'm just enjoying my football, like a lot of the games are entertaining. Like a lot of them are decided in the final minutes. We score a lot, obviously.
It's been a lot of goals.
Yeah, it's been a lot of goals.
We give up a lot too.
Yeah, but it is interesting. So I think overall we're making the right steps. And I think obviously people have got, Ben started his Devil Advocates thing. So a big part of that is to try and improve fan experience, to find out what people want. But haven't really, I think the football this year has been a good distraction. When you're doing really well, everybody, wants to throw in other suggestions. But the football's been a nice distraction. And, the attendance is, as you say, like 3,700 that we had on Tuesday. That's really impressive. So for us anyway, for a club of our size, so we must be doing something right.
I think Katie even said the previous Tuesday was still like 33 or 34.
Our average,
when we first got here Tuesday nights were like sub 2,000.
Like 2.5,
Max,
2.6.
Yeah, it was bad. So that alone, I think, is pretty telling. Even the last Tuesday, that wasn't the half-term one.
Stevenage.
Thank you. Yeah, that was like a rescheduled game that got postponed. And anyway, I think it's positive all around for sure.
Definitely. Anything else we need to cover?
No, we went on like a tangent of random stuff down the end, so this ended up being longer than we even thought it would be. So I'm good. If you're good. Yeah.
No, I think so. I think we've covered everything. We've certainly covered everything on field. Just trying to think, there's anything off field.
What are you planning to do while you drive for 7 hours to Blackpool tomorrow? That's what I want to know.
There's going to have to be some serious Uno games, I think, on the coach. That is.
You have a portable charger for the phone. Everything
fully stocked. I plan on sleeping a lot. Yeah, it's hopefully on the back of 3 points that will make the 6+ hour coach journey a little easier. But yeah, it could be a long one if not. But yeah, to sum it up, how hopeful are you for the rest of the season?
How hopeful? I'm really hopeful. I'm not kidding. Like, we've been a little unlucky on top of we've been a much better team the last nearly 2 months now. There's no reason not to be positive and hopeful anyways in life about most things. Yeah. I think we're all there, and I think the attitude around the club's been really great in 2025. Yeah. It also, might not work out, and that's just kind of how life goes sometimes, but we're in a good spot, and I feel like getting, Flint's another one that we were getting calls about before January, before he got hurt. I think he got hurt in like the 12th game of the season. Our model grade
Northampton away in October, wasn't it? Yeah,
it was October. Our model grades him as our most impactful player of the season. Unfortunately, he's only been able to play in 12, but we were getting calls on him for like extraordinary amounts of money pre-January. Is like, hey, so what do you think about this in like 2 months? So like that's another. I think it could have been 3 of the 4 biggest sales in Crawley Town history just in January alone if he hadn't gotten hurt. But anyway, having him and Toby come back and just solidify everything we're doing defensively, especially and on set pieces and in the box, I think it's going to be it's going to give us a real chance. So at the end of the day, that's all we can hope for. Yeah.
I agree. I think the feeling around the club is the best that it has been. Sort of all season, because other than the first 2 games, obviously when we went back to back and then we were away at places like Brighton. Certainly since then, this is the best I've felt in terms of how fans feel, how the players feel. The players seem to have really connected, like we've got a good thing going at the moment. So I think if we continue that, we'll be all good.
Beautiful.
Score prediction for Saturday?
2-2.
2-2.
I'm just going to be realistic and honest. It's hopeful, but 2-2, it's a tough place to play. And they're good. By the way, that same XG term I was giving us, Blackpool's number 1 in the league. Okay. So they've been legit. Told me that,
but I'm going to go 2-1. I'm going to be positive. I'm going to go Rashan, and then I'm also going to go with Armando.
There you go. Yeah, he's ready to go.
Yeah.
I like it.
Perfect. Well, thank you for joining us, Crawley fans. And hopefully we'll be back a little bit sooner than the last time.
Yeah, we'll do another one sooner. That makes sense.
See you in the next one.